Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name's Rory Paquette. I know you know that. Just like to remind myself about how grateful I am to be sitting in this chair. Folks, with everything that you've done for us lately, especially with the state of the world as it is, being able to count on listeners like you has really been fantastic for us. And it's gotten us to a point where we know you're listening and we're doing everything we can to continue to bring you fantastic content with powerful men with fantastic messages. So we're going to keep doing that for you. And I appreciate you doing what you're doing for us. Thank you for all the subscribes, the DMs, the likes, everything else, especially the DMs. You guys are just amazing with those. So I promise, I will get caught up on those and I'll get everybody answered. I answer them myself. So as we get moving, you guys all know what time it is. It's time to pay a couple bills. So let me get a sip of my preferred beverage. Man, that is good stuff. All right. You know what we're drinking? That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. Absolutely fantastic cup of Joe. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, including supporting veterans. And you all know how important supporting veterans is to us here at Power Man. If you are a veteran out there, I want to thank you and your family for your service. We love you, and we're glad you found a home here at the Power Man Podcast. One more time, Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Let me get one more sip so I can keep up with this young buck across the table from me. All right. You guys are going to love this one. Please welcome to the show the host of the Man in Progress Forging Manhood podcast, Travis Murray. Travis, love the name of your podcast, brother. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic, and thank you for that. It took me a while to come up with that name.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. And I love that it doesn't leave any, stone unturned as to what the podcast is about. It's just right there.
Yeah.
So very cool. Very cool. Well, Travis, I'll tell you what, I know we got a bunch to dig into today. Just give everybody an idea. Who is Travis Murray? Kind of what are you about and what's your story?
Yeah, so I'm just a father and husband, and my goals are to reach individuals who are in need. I teach values. I try to instill those in a way that makes sense and are a little bit of fun with my forge theme. It's more of a blacksmith type area, but it all accounts to the same thing: building values and loving what you do and loving yourself.
Nice, nice. I mean, you can't go wrong with everything you just said right there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what was there anything that happened in your life or any life events or something, or is there a story behind all that? What led you into that kind of work?
Yeah, so I mean, early on, I had some entanglement with relationships. I mean, we all do. My One of my first relationships, where I had my kids, didn't last, and it brought me down to a dark area of my life. And it wasn't just the relationship ending; it was my life as a whole, just where I was at, where I was going. It just didn't seem like it was going anywhere. So I went to a very dark, depressive area. And, you know, unfortunately, I came into some vices at the same time, along with alcohol and things like that. I lost my way. I stopped believing in, God Almighty and all that. And it just, my life was just turning upside down faster than I could count my chickens. And in that sense, there was a spark in my life where I just stopped chasing the dating relationship life and wanted to just be me and find out who that really was. I stopped drinking alcohol as much. I can now enjoy a good beverage without the addiction. I can, it's something that I've been trying to bring into my life and my friends' lives as well. Just let them know, like, alcohol it's a good tool, but it's a terrible master. And so
Uh,
and so in that sense, I spent this time alone and I really just found out who I was, and I started realizing that I had value, not in just what I did for other people, but for myself. And understanding, a lot of us men go through, am I enough? and they really struggle with that question. And it's a type of imposter syndrome that we face. And so I learned early on in my life in that section where I was alone and just wanting to be alone that you could build something that you can fall back on when times get tough. I started giving myself a breathing exercise, and I didn't go to therapy and all that stuff because growing up in the way that I did, I didn't really believe in therapy and all that stuff. Now I know that it's good, and if you can, you should. But in that sense, I developed values for myself that allowed me time to figure out who I was. And so that's something that really helped me take myself from that poverty line upwards and then into a relationship where I found a wonderful, spectacular woman who, helps me grow and I help her. And it's just this twofold relationship now. I'm and it's something that's just special to me. And so I want to help other people. And that's just been my goal, help other people.
Nice, nice. Well, and I know that you're part of what that translates into is doing men's work, and trying to
Yeah.
help other men, with the movement you're putting together here. You're also, uh, at least hoping to start a foster foundation, from what I read in your bio, and it's probably something you've talked about a lot. But are you or are your wife adopted, or how did this become so dear to your heart?
Yeah, so I got back into religion, and my wife already had a dream because of the foster care stuff that she's been researching, and she already had a dream of wanting to get involved in some way, shape, or form and starting a foundation to help out foster kids. But one day I was just kind of meditating, and something came to me. I started seeing this, you know, vision in my head, if you will, like a daydream. And it took me back into this area where I met this figure, and this figure just said, start with the children. And so I started doing some research. I started digging into what that could possibly mean. And I know it's my own psyche in some weird way telling me to do something that I love and what I cherish. And I've always loved kids. I've always wanted to be a father. It was a dream of mine even before I dreamed, you know. And so in that sense, I've always wanted to be in a room helping children grow, helping children see the light, helping children with education, with purpose. And so, I started looking into some stuff. I was talking to my wife, and she said this foster situation. So we both started doing some more research, and I learned that there are a lot of kids in the foster program. And unfortunately, whether they belong there or not, a lot of them are treated less than. And so my goal, and I'm still expanding upon the dream and really trying to figure out where I sit in this ladder of events that takes place before kids are taken away from their parents, is to help the parents and the children be a step between. So before
Hmm.
a judge, before social services says, I'm going to take your kids, sorry, blah, 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 they recommend that these people come to us so that we can help them with one, addiction, with two, getting into parenting type classes. Three, we help the children feel wanted and involved. We give them a school to go to, resources that they can access. And part of that dream is that we bring people in, we bring in specialists and experts in fields that the kids really want to know about. So for instance, if they wanted to know how to build a podcast, right? Then we would get an expert on building podcasts to come in and teach some of the children who want to do that how to build a podcast. And that's something that we're working on, and we're trying to really lock down that goal and that dream so that we can start actualizing it.
Wow. I mean, you definitely have this very well thought out. I didn't expect that kind of a dissertation on it, but that's amazing. I mean, whenever I hear somebody say, "Oh, someday, I'd really like to do this," it's like, okay, well, tell me about it. And usually I'll get, well, I'd kind of like to do this. 30 seconds later, they're done.
Yeah.
Because it's just a hope or a dream. It sounds like you've really mapped this out.
Yeah, I have been thinking about this a lot, and I do this a lot. I'm a problem solver. That's kind of my how my headspace works. I need to know when and where something fits in, what's involved on both ends, the beginning, the ending, and then I map out the middle of that for whatever purpose it is. And, I don't know if it's some muse that came to me and just was like, "Hey, figure this out. Let's go here and here. But I've grown a little bit more in my faith and understanding that every person put on this earth has a purpose, right? And what that purpose is for you to find out. It's something you're going to enjoy doing. It's something you're going to love being a part of. And you just have to map out where that is and what it is, and then do the work.
Nice. Nice. So with the work that you've done, I mean, and all of the layout and research and everything else, and dreaming big, the way you guys are, how far away do you think you are from being able to put some of this into reality?
Yeah, so we're still trying to find out the laws around the foster system itself and that. Once we learn more about that situation, we'll be a little bit closer, and then we can start getting, funding and whatnot. See where our funding is going to go. We haven't decided if we really want to get, government funding or private funding, because when you get government funding, it comes with a lot of rules and regulations and we're trying to figure out if maybe a part of each would be good or what the best funding option there is and hopefully my wife's goal is that we get rich enough that we can fund it ourselves. And I'm like, you know what,
Sure.
I'm on board with that.
Right. I mean, that's perfect way to do it, right? In
Yeah.
a perfect world. Absolutely. Sometimes these things, you have to kind of bootstrap them to start them. And
Mhm.
then once it's a thing, then people go, "Oh, look at that! Oh, I want to support that." You know what I mean? And people
Correct.
jump on board. So, is that a actual possibility? You think that you guys like sort of like whip it together, even on a very small scale, and say, "Hey, here we are. Help us grow."
Yeah, so that's the plan. I want to get the laws and regulations down. I want to learn kind of where we can set up inside of, and then in that regard, we even will start taking in foster children, and then from there we'll start to develop them, get them into schooling, get them into, extracurricular activities, help them grow, help the families so that we can remerge the family and the children back together. Because
Yeah.
the end goal is that, family is a strong unit and it does take a village to raise children. That's why we have school systems. That's why we have therapists. That's why we have extracurricular activities with coaches and stuff like that. It's because we need all of this input from all of these, adults because we were raised in, our pre-civilization era. We were raised in tribes, and at a certain age, the children would actually go seek out a new tribe,
Hmm.
and there was a reason for that. And so they gain all the knowledge they can from the surrounding tribe, and they have to go out to another tribe to learn more.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. Wow. I mean, that's quite the vision you have there. It really is, and it's impressive. I don't. I mean, I haven't studied this area or anything, and so just as a sort of an average passerby, it doesn't seem to me, with everybody I've talked to and what little experience I do have with family courts and things of that nature, that this is something that is out there in great force. I know there's a lot of, hey, once there's a mistake made, then get the kids out, then there's all kinds of, help then. Um, I really haven't seen anything in terms of preventive care for that situation. Is this kind of a new niche that you guys are dealing in?
So I mean, I would say that it's a niche in the way that we are trying to build it. It would be, I believe, the first of its kind. But in that same sense, there are other things out there like people starting foster found, or it's not really foster, it's more kids without parents
Hmm.
situations where they build homes for these kids and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell, there's nothing in between. Nothing a judge would say, hey, before we take your kids, go here
Right.
and
Got it.
see what you can learn, see what you can do.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and I appreciate you kind of educating me on that because, like I said, I don't know it anywhere near as good as you guys do, but just seems like kind of an untapped market, I guess, if you will,
Yeah.
to put it in business terms. But good for you guys on this. Now, where does your mission to help men come from then?
Yeah, so being a man and being raised how I was with a stepfather who I mean, I was a worker. I wasn't a kid, I was a worker. I chopped wood every summer. I dug holes. I cleaned the house. I was a maid, a servant. I wasn't a child. And
Wow.
so in that sense of that, um, I'm realizing that, and I talk about this in my podcast, the men around me who exemplified strength in my perspective of manly strength, they weren't strong. They were weak behind a strength mask. And that mask, it breaks over time. It breaks in either abuse in the home, abuse toward the children, or it breaks in other ways at your job or in public. You do things that you land in jail for. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who think that they have a value, like they want to be honest. But in a lot of the ways that I see honesty is what I call cruel honesty. It's where you say, something hurtful and mean to your wife and then back it up by saying, well, I'm just being honest.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. So this comes from your upbringing then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand. A lot of us have that, where we're kind of trying to find, recompense or justice in some cases, or just fix things
Yeah.
from how we grew up. So I admire that. I get it. You mentioned the podcast. I've had a chance to listen to some of your episodes. The For folks who haven't, tell folks, what is it you cover in your podcast? How do you do it? And what's the purpose?
Yeah, so far I've got about 6 episodes out, and these 6 episodes are around a forge theme, a blacksmith theme, where for starters, you pick the metal, you pick your value, and then you hammer in compassion for yourself. You realize that mistakes, you could change the word from mistakes to opportunities to grow.
Hmm.
And if you switch it to opportunities to grow, it's like, okay, I just made an opportunity to grow. I know what not to do next time. I'll do something else differently next time. And so you give yourself compassion, self-compassion, really, because if your friend came to you and said, "Hey man, I messed up. I did this." The first thing that you would do for your friend is you'd say, "Hey man, it's okay. All you got to do now is blah blah blah." And so my thought is, why not give that same compassion to yourself? And in that sense, you trust yourself more than you trust anyone else. So if you're telling yourself that it's okay, you're telling yourself that you'll grow from this, then you will. But if you're telling yourself it's a mistake, if you're telling yourself that you're not enough, then that's what you're going to believe. And really, it's something called resistance. And this dates back further than even me, but there's this thing that we all face, and it's called resistance. It's your shadow self telling you that you are not enough and you need to stop putting yourself out there so that you can be comfortable,
Yeah.
because comfort is the death of progress. And so you want to make sure that you recognize your resistance, you call it out into the air so you can tell yourself, you know what? I'm feeling like I just want to sleep in today. But that is my resistance talking of comfort. And if I let that happen, whatever beast I feed is the beast that will grow. And so you want to keep yourself fed in the right areas, in the mind, in the heart, and you want to, keep on producing what feels good and feels right in that way of values, right? Not in that way of comfort. And so then from there, I teach values. I teach that it's important to think about your values, think about how you use your value, and do one at a time. If you try to do 10, you're going to mess up on all 10 of them. And so pick one, start with one. And once you get to a point where it comes natural in situations that demand your value be tested, then you can start building another, and then get yourself a good set of values, because one, it lowers stress. Like I know when my kid comes to me and they're going through, their mood shifts and their swings and they're upset and they want to blow up at me, it's a simple and easy remark just to say, "Hey, in our home, we talk to each other with respect. Can we start over and continue again?" And then they take a second. And if they keep going, I say, "Okay, it's time for a 2 second breath. We're just going to breathe in and we're going to breathe out and we're going to try again." And it's remaining in that calm aspect because one of my values is to treat everyone with respect, and that includes my children.
All right. Yeah, I like that. I like where this is going for you. The resistance that you brought up. I'd love to hear your thoughts, opinions on, on that a little bit more because we all definitely have that. I think that I don't think there's a man out there that's going to have this conversation with you and go, man, I don't have any kind of resistance to change. What are you talking about? None of us want to change. None of us want to, have an introspective look at what's going on. We just want to power forward, and eventually as we just keep working, keep our heads down, things get fixed. You know what I mean? So, for guys like you who want to dive deeper into it and start, working on the mechanics, I have a lot of respect for that. The resistance that men are feeling, that they're dealing with in these areas, any idea what is causing that?
So the idea behind resistance is that it's something that stagnates you and your soul, right? In that sense, it's if you go back, so I actually did I read a book, it's A Hero of a Thousand Faces, and then I watched a YouTube video from Joseph Campbell called The Hero's Journey. And they talk about this quite, the whole thing is focused on resistance and the hero's journey itself. And what this person did is they went around and studied every religion that they could possibly get their hands on the planet. And they came up with the same basic structure of the hero's journey. It starts off with somebody who gets a calling and they don't fight it. They go along with it and they leave their home, their safety, their structure, and they go out and they go out and face threshold guardians, guardians who are trying to protect a realm of your growth. And so you go out and you face threshold guardians and you meet the enemy along the way and you discover at the end of this journey, I'll just brief it out for you. I would recommend, reading the book or watching the YouTube film. Um, that it's yourself that you're fighting this entire time. And once you stop fighting yourself, you start loving yourself, then you and your shadow self can move on through the last threshold to the treasure room, is what they're saying. And that's when you feel the real growth. So resistance is your shadow self trying to keep you safe, trying to keep you comfortable. And the best things in life are on the other side of comfort, or if you will, from Will Smith, the best things in life are on the other side of fear, right? We fear growth, we fear what we don't know. And so when resistance comes into play, resistance is telling you to fear this because you don't know. And so resistance comes in many forms. It comes in the form of comfort foods, it comes in the form of alcohol, drugs, it comes in the form of, TV shows. It takes many shapes because it is trying to win. It wants to win. And any day that you don't give 100%, your enemy will always thank you.
I love ending on that one. Okay, great answer. Appreciate that. You mentioned a couple times faith, calling, some religion, things like that. Is your faith part of this journey?
So it wasn't, but having faith in myself, having faith that there is a purpose is part of that. And so wherever that comes from, if you believe in God, if you believe in multiple gods, if you believe in the universe, if you believe in, spirituality, whatever it is, in that sense, there is something pushing us in a direction. I feel it all the time. And there's something else there as well that if you don't go with the push, if you don't do that, like let's for instance say you have friends. I had this old friend of mine I grew up with in high school and best of friend. I loved going around and having adventures with him, but there was always something there that I knew made this not really a good friendship. And and so the universe kept pushing me away from this person. For one, it moved me across the state that we lived in. And so we only had to converse through phone calls. And when I would go up and visit him, he would rarely come down and visit me. And his excuse was that he had a family. And I'm like, so do I. But so I would come up and visit and all that stuff. But the universe kept pushing me away from this person, and I kept crawling back, fighting the universe, up until, he tried to ruin my now marriage. He was going to be my best man, and he told me he wasn't going to do it a week before my marriage was supposed to take place. And his reason was that he didn't know my wife too well and he didn't trust it. And I was like, oh. And then, him and his wife went to my wife and said that I was just going to get bored of her. And they tried to sabotage my relationship. And
What in
so
the
on that,
world?
yeah. And on that note, I cut him off. And my life has grown exponentially since the cutoff. So a lot of times we face even people who are resistance to us. The universe is trying to take and push us away from these people. And we just need to find a way to really recognize that that's what's taking place. And then, we need to cut off the people who won't help us grow.
Yeah. That's interesting, and that's tough. That's a really tough thing for people to wrap their heads around. I've heard that
It is.
in various contexts. I like what you're doing with the universe and energy and shadow work and that type of thing. I mean, I get that plane of thought. So it sounds like you've done a little bit of work in that area. Am I picking that up right?
Yes, I have
Yeah.
a lot.
Awesome, awesome. What, if you don't mind me asking, and you can always say, hey, pass on a question. If you don't want to answer it, totally fine, brother. What's been your experience with that? Because it sounds like you're pretty well versed in that area.
In cutting people off.
No, in the energy, shadow work,
Oh,
that type of thing.
oh,
Is that something that you went through in your recovery and, becoming, a better person, that type of thing?
yes, it is. I did a lot of looking inward because the problem wasn't my external forces. I was in a good job. I had good friends around me at this time. I found a wonderful woman who was trying to push me to grow, and I kept fighting it and fighting it. And so I decided that I needed to stop looking outside of me to find where the problem was. Because like I said, I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
So I started looking inside and I'm like, what am I fighting? What are my defenses up for? What is this reason? And one of the things I had is my wife would come to me and she would say, "Hey, you know, how come this? How come, you didn't take the trash out, for instance?" I use this as an example quite often. How come you didn't take the trash out? Because I asked you to if you could do that this morning when I ran out of time. And in that sense of why, you look at yourself and you go, why didn't I? But a lot of us tend to fight it. I just didn't have time. I was doing this. I lost track of it. I blah blah blah. Many excuses, many excuses, many excuses.
Yeah, for
But the
sure.
real the real reason was something else that you just didn't feel comfortable being honest and truthful with your wife. One day she asked me that question and it switched from the excuses of, I was so busy today, I didn't think about it. I lost out of my mind to the truth, which was, you know what? I really didn't want to do it. And so I allowed myself to push the thought out of my mind.
Hmm.
And she went, "Whoa, where did that come from?" And I'm like, I was just being honest with you because I know that you deserve that honesty.
Right on.
And she was like, "Okay." I'm like, "But I'll go do it right now." And so I grabbed it, went outside and did it. Next time she asked me to do something, I just did it. She's like, "Hey, can you switch laundry? Hey, can you put laundry in?" I just do it. Do it at that moment because you're free and able to. Don't hesitate. Don't start a fight with your wife because of something you could do in seconds. Like,
Absolutely. I mean, that's some deep-rooted accountability stuff you're talking about right now.
yeah.
Yeah, that's wow, that's interesting. All right, that work obviously has helped you to
Oh
get you to
yeah.
the point where you are. I mean, if that's the way your thought process is working now,
Yeah.
then yeah, that's awesome, man. The accountability seems to be a big thing of what you're talking about. Men taking accountability for themselves, for their families, and so on. Um, is there any when it comes to what you're teaching and how you work with men, do you have kind of a set of points or things that you focus on in that way? Where, like we said, we're kind of focusing on accountability. Are there other areas that you make sure that you focus on when you're talking to somebody, or is it just kind of dealing with that person on an individual basis and what they need?
So it is kind of just dealing with the individual on a basis, but at the same time, there are steps that I like to bring up. And really it comes down to the values that you choose. So if you choose honesty, then accountability is part of honesty. So I do teach, hey, if you're being honest, then you need that kind honesty, that, good intention honesty that says, hey, I'm going to tell you the truth of what my thought process was, and I'm going to discover what my thought process was so that I can tell you what that is. But if somebody talks about, they want courage, I'm not going to talk about accountability as much until they bring up honesty, because a lot of times when men choose courage as their first value, they tend to choose honesty as their next one because they want the courage to be honest. And so in that sense, it does come up, but it's really a touch point for certain values.
Interesting. All right. No, it makes total sense to me too. I like that. All right. So now are you working with men in some capacity, or are you putting these ideas out on the podcast and that's kind of where, you live right now?
So I am a values coach, and I am
Mhm.
starting a business around being a values coach in that way as well. But I do not have current clients. I'm really only working with my friends, and fathers that I'm aware of, and just helping them just a little bit, just so I can
Sure.
see it in practice and know that it is something valuable enough to go out and market for.
Nice. I mean, start, cut your teeth, do it that way. Absolutely. That way it's very, very real. So, the fact that this whole thing is coming from your personal experience and your personal transformation makes it that much more credible. So, congratulations on that. Because, I
Thank
mean,
you.
that's really cool. I mean, there's really nothing worse than someone who's trying to like coach a group of people, on things he's never dealt with. So, I appreciate the fact that you're coming from that spot of credibility, especially on this show. I kind of have a responsibility for that, but I love that, and I'm glad that that's helping you kind of do that. So the I know the podcast is young at this point, and you've just how often do you guys come out? How often you put out episodes, that type of thing.
Yeah, so I put out an episode every week on
Okay,
Monday.
perfect. All right, and interview format, solo format. Which way are you going to be going in the future?
Yeah, so the future is going to go into interviews. I want to
Okay.
find men who have done the work, who have built values, because I talk about historical men in my podcast, like Viktor Frankl, Nelson Mandela, um, uh, Ernest Shackleton, some just to name a couple in there. And these men have gone through history in some of the worst possible ways. I mean, Viktor Frankl was a Jew who was in Auschwitz, who learned to see beauty and keep his resolve in that area, and that's tough. Ernest Shackleton led an expedition for 2 years to Antarctica back in, like, I would think it was like 1800 or somewhere around there,
Hmm.
and he got stranded. Ship got crushed in the ice. He had 27 other men with him, and instead of pushing forward to be the first man to reach the South Pole, he turned around, and in doing so saved not only his life but every person that he took with him came back
Yeah,
alive.
yeah. Oh, that's a heck of a story, brother. That really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay. I mean, that's what people have to look forward to in the podcast, man. I love that. So that's really good stuff you're going. It's a good direction you're heading, and I can appreciate that. All right. Listen, I appreciate everything you have brought to the program today, man, and sharing your story and what you're all about. Let me first, before we wrap it up, let me just make sure I got. How can everybody contact you? How can they find you? What's the best way to contact Travis?
Yeah, so I release episodes on uh, Buzzsprout.
Uh-huh.
You can just find me there, Man in Progress, Forging Manhood.
Okay.
That does get pushed out to every other podcasting service that I can push out to. So Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the major ones. So you can find me there as well. There is a support feature and a contact feature. So if
Okay.
you wanted to contact me there, you could just hit the send a text to the host button, and that would send a text right to me. Or you can go to my website, travismurrayvo.com/podcast.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Listen, that's great. We'll have that stuff in the show notes for everybody. As we kind of wrap and bring this to a close, it's been great having you here, man. Let me just kind of give it to you like this. Is there anything I didn't ask you? Is there anything that you talked about, but you want to double down on, or maybe a parting thought, nugget, piece of advice, anything like that you want to leave for our audience, or like 90% men, you know what I mean, in this audience. So you're talking to your target market, brother. Anything you want to leave like that, and I'll give you the floor for the last minute. for anything you want to close with.
Yeah, so I'll just say first off, thank you, Rory, for having me. It's been an epic journey to kind of talk to you and explain all this as well. So thank you for having me. I appreciate that so much.
Sure.
And I'll just leave everyone with the with a just a quick little quote that I like, which is any day that you show up less than 100% of yourself, your enemy, your rival, is going to thank you. So keep that in mind. The next day that you have, even today, show up at 100%. Face your enemy at 100% because it's the only way you're going to win.
That's a great, great way to close. I love that. It's easy for guys to remember, and man, it's so true. It is so true. All right, all right. Listen, we have the host of Man in Progress, Forging Manhood. Go check the podcast out, folks. He's got big things planned for it. Travis Murray. Travis, thank you, man, for being on today. It's been absolutely awesome. I really enjoyed our conversation, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much. And I hope that you find great success as well.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Folks, that's been another awesome episode of the Power Man podcast. And the reason that we bring such powerful men on here with such powerful messages is because we are united in you finding your power and regaining it so that you can become a better protector, better provider, a better leader tomorrow than you are today. So you can become a better husband, a better father, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason we want that for you is because you have value. You're worth it. You matter. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.